And then for our last task here in this module and objective on installing domain controllers, we're asked to deploy Active Directory in Microsoft Azure. And to be perfectly honest, the inclusion of this additional task here in the R2 version of this content is a bit strange considering all the extra prerequisite knowledge that's required about Azure itself to appreciate what needs to go into deploying a domain controller inside of Microsoft Azure. Now, the process that we're referring to here, the infrastructure as a service process or IaaS process of getting a DC up in Azure, what it really relates to is the notion of actually creating a virtual machine inside of Microsoft Azure and then installing Active Directory on that virtual machine, just like you would inside of a local machine. In fact, if I come over here to my other tab first, we can take a look at my personal copy of Microsoft Azure, where if I click down here under New, you can take a look at a new virtual machine here, which you can quick create or create from the gallery. When you create that new machine, you'll need to associate any additional hard drives or disks with that machine. You'll also need to make a determination about how you want to get that machine connected up into your internal network. Because recall, Microsoft Azure and the machines inside of Azure are available and connectable from the rest of the internet. And so making a connection through some sort of VPN from that Azure location into the rest of your network is something you'll want to consider when it comes time to building that machine up in the cloud. I want to direct your attention, rather than going into the nitty-gritty detail, I want to direct your attention to a specific article here in the Microsoft Azure portion of Microsoft.com that lists a set of guidelines for deploying Windows Server Active Directory on Azure virtual machines. This again is the IaaS version. I believe, and this is a gut instinct, but I believe Microsoft's intention of including this here in this version of the 410 is in just helping you recognize that it is now possible to install Active Directory and a domain controller directly onto a virtual machine. However, there are a variety of just different things you have to be aware of in order to do so, and this very long document here provides a great amount of detail, really, about all the things that are necessary to think about when it comes time to making that provisioning. There is, however, down here way at the bottom, there's one little picture that I want to direct you towards that will help give you an appreciation of the type of network connection that you'll be intending to create when you extend your Active Directory into Microsoft Azure, and that's this one right here. This third item shows your corporate site, your internal network, and the Windows Azure site that you've created in your account, as well as the domain controllers here in either side that are connected through an Azure virtual network. It is this Azure virtual network that provides a mechanism for these domain controllers to communicate securely across what would otherwise be the internet. Being able to have that domain controller in Azure can be handy when you have organizations and users that are out perhaps anywhere in the world that need to connect with their domain controller, but there are obviously some risks in making that domain controller directly accessible for the rest of the world. Just again, be aware for the purposes of the 410 that it is possible to do this with some important caveats associated with keeping that information secure.